Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. I suppose, Liam, with that being said, let's move on to the URC. There were a few fixtures from round 6 that had to be played last weekend. And I suppose we have to give a big call out to Ulster Rugby in terms of their performance in Durban, South Africa. Not an easy place to go at the best of times. But Ulster Rugby securing a bonus point win, 31-24, really gets their URC season back on track here. Liam, what were your thoughts on this impressive performance by Ulster?
Yeah, and all their young players prominent as well. An excellent, 4-try bonus point win to go down to the Sharks when, I suppose, look, we were kind of thinking that the Sharks would probably just get over the line there. And Dwayne Vermeulen, I think, was also the captain and the leader of that team. That actually worked out incredibly well as well for Ulster. And I suppose the thing is with the Sharks and the South African sides for the next 2 weeks, they will be without their Springbok players. And of all the sides, obviously it's going to affect the Sharks the most because they have the most in the South African squad. And probably had the least depth, of the other South African teams in terms of when all their first choice guys are not available for playing. So but look, for Ulster, it consolidates third spot. I think they're going to pretty much, unless they collapse in the next few games, they're going to hold on to third spot. In terms of Munster, probably a good result, and Connacht as well, I would actually argue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought this was a very key win for Ulster Rugby, just how it started. Sharks started incredibly well. Grant Williams going over after just 71 seconds here, Liam. The alarm bells were ringing a little bit, but I think to be fair to Ulster, John Cooney kind of stepped up with a penalty, followed by a few maul tries. And I think the maul here, from an Ulster Rugby perspective, really worked incredibly well against the Sharks. I think an awful lot of the internationals for the Sharks were not playing here, but I think take nothing away from Ulster here, it was a very good performance in terms of that. I think the Sharks, regaining the initiative again. Abrams racing onto the chip to get them back in here. But again, Ulster seemed to have the Sharks measure here. Aaron Sexton going over. I was delighted to see Jake Flannery getting game time, significant game time on the road against the Sharks. Didn't think he did anything wrong. And then you had Ian Mangan again to come on to close out the game at 10. So I think all in all here from Dan McFarlane and coaching staff here, utilising players that needed to be utilised.
Yeah, look, they've kind of had up and down season, haven't they? They were almost on the point of collapse there a month ago. But it's just turned around completely for Ulster now. They go into, I suppose, the final few games of the season. They certainly third and fourth spot really are what's up for grabs to get a semi-final spot like that. And I think that the Sharks could be now in trouble, actually, because not only were they supposed to win this game, but they're up against the Stormers next weekend, again without their Springboks. So it's looking as if they're going to go down. I suppose it looks to me that Munster and Connacht should really be aiming for the 5th and 6th spots, quite frankly, in terms of the league. It's well doable, with the potentially the Bulls and the Sharks kind of going down the table.
Yeah, I think with the Sharks, it's a worry now because their squad depth is now being exposed on a number of occasions here. No disrespect to Ulster Rugby here, but again, if you're facing a potent Sharks team with Ethabet and international colleagues, that's a different ballgame whatsoever. So I think from a Munster perspective, maybe grounds for optimism, but that pack is going to be massively respected in Durban. Yeah, I'm with you here. I mean, you're looking at the Stormers Sharks on Saturday here. Stormers in a good vein of form. You can only see probably one result there, and I think from a Sharks perspective, I suppose, Liam, are they hedging more bets on the Heineken Champions Cup here, given their squad selection issues at the moment, I would say, particularly in the URC?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always thought that they're more built for cup rugby, as in they're well capable of just grinding out results where they don't necessarily have to chase a 4-try bonus point win, those sort of circumstances. Yeah, look, when it comes to the likes of the European Cup and Munster down in Durban, it's going to be a quite different ball game. They're kind of a team that you would tip to go far in the European Cup, actually.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Liam, but I think Munster Rugby in a good run of form themselves, probably going to be heading down there. Hopefully, in a rich vein of form, and it'll be interesting just to see in terms of Sharks how they react to this. I mean, the Stormers game is a key fixture in the context of their season, really, to be fair. When you consider that they also have the Scarlets, they travel to Scarlets on week 16. They have Benetton at home on week 17, and then culminating with a fixture with Munster to finish off the regular season. So, like, Sharks could be save our season when Munster come to town for the URC. I suppose, Liam, if you're kind of looking at it here from round 6 perspective, there was also the fixture between the Emirates Lions versus Glasgow Warriors. Glasgow came into this 10 wins in all competitions before the fixture. They got turned over 35-24 against an Emirates Lions team that were more incisive in attack, but I suppose Glasgow Warriors, maybe a very frustrating performance from their perspective, given that they did leave an awful lot of points on the board. Did get the bonus point for the try, but again, Emirates Lions providing probably a well overdue home win here to appease the home supporters in South African media.
Absolutely, because I mean they're a big money team, plenty of investment behind them, and Van Rooyen, the coach, under huge pressure, potentially maybe to go, and probably would have. I suppose the question is if the Lions had lost that game, yeah, there would be certainly upheaval. In terms of Glasgow again, probably works out very well for us that that Glasgow didn't get the 4 points or even the 5 points. Perfect result really for us, unexpected, So again, it's still all to play for, There's apart from like Leinster and Stormers, which are pretty much gone away at this stage, every other position is up for grabs there.
Going down here, the Lions were under a little bit of a siege mentality, given their performance against the Sharks the previous week. But I mean, it was a magnificent burst from the Lions, particularly in that second quarter, scoring 4 tries in the process. Now, this was a pretty feisty affair, Liam. Lions picked up 2 yellow cards, Glasgow 1. And also there was a red card in the third quarter. Dreyer got sent off in the 66th minute as well. So, I mean, maybe this is more grounds for frustration from a Glasgow Warriors perspective. They had picked up 4 tries before the 61st minute. So the fact of the matter is no real genuine try-scoring opportunities unfolded in that last 20 minutes, which is probably a bit of a sore point for Franco Smith. But take nothing away from the Lions here. The likes of Lombard, Horn, I thought had a very good game here. Again, Venter, Van der Merwe. Again, it was a much needed win from the Emirates Lions here. But again, from a Glasgow Warriors perspective, it probably a bit of a reality check, just given a few inaccuracies, particularly with ball in hand. And again, it probably sets up their season pretty well when we consider the fixture list coming up this weekend. They will have Zebri this weekend coming. You would imagine we'd get 5 points, but then it's culminating in that Thomond Park home fixture for Munster in round 16 here, which could be very decisive in terms of places come to playoff time here, Liam.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, it's maybe going to culminate in one of the biggest games in the league is going to be that Munster game at home to Glasgow. So much riding on it, really, before we head off to in the season with the South African trip. Glasgow, to me, have the best kind of fixture list remaining, and probably 4th spot is what they should be really aiming for in the table. But things can change. We've seen with that unexpected result against the Lions, and all to play for really still before games to go.
But again, it probably highlights again a trip to South Africa is a massive achievement to get a win down in the Southern Hemisphere, particularly with the fast track conditions currently in South Africa. I think, this is probably a timely reminder for the likes of the Munsters, the Leinsters here, to really kind of be on their guard going down there towards the latter end of the season. I suppose, Liam, we could look at round 15 fixture list as follows. On Friday night, Munster entertain Scarlets at Glasgow, Scotstoun to entertain a winless Sebri Rugby. On Saturday, we have the Stormers, Sharks, Bulls, Lions in 2 South African derbies. Edinburgh entertaining Leinster Rugby. Ospreys entertaining Benetton, a must-win, I think, for both sides there. Dragons entertaining Connacht, and Cardiff Rugby facing Ulster Rugby on Saturday evening. I suppose, Liam, we can start with Munster Rugby Scarlets. Again, a very comprehensive victory for Munster over the Ospreys in week 14. Do you anticipate Munster being in the same vein of form against a Scarlets team, to be fair, who are improving, again, unbeaten in 5?
Yeah, I would certainly expect us to do. I'm not sure we're going to get 58 points to win the game, but look, I definitely expect us to get the 4-try bonus point win. I mean, that's without question at this stage. You know, we need to be getting those bonus point wins at this stage of the season, and there's nothing to suggest that the Scarlets are going to offer much at this stage. We have the Scottish side, we have the Welsh sides are pretty much bottom of the table along with Zebras. So I can't see that much changing between now and the end of the season. So, you know, we're looking again to all our upcoming talent with the Six Nations guys probably not being released. And also RG Sneeman, I think it's primed that he is going to make some sort of appearance even for a few minutes to get him up to speed for the knockout games.
Yeah, I think that's the main bulletin board point, really. RG Steinman returned to full training with the squad in recent weeks, and he's available for selection. So, look, if he's available, I think you might see maybe a 5-10 minute cameo off the bench here. So, you know, obviously, Munster Rugby medical staff and coaches are happy with him that he's available for selection. I suppose you've Ben Healy rejoining the Munster team from Scottish camp here. Joey Carberry, Jack Crowley, Gavin Coombs, and Roman Salano all been released back to the Munster squad as well. And yeah, it kind of all bodes well here. I suppose Calvin Nash, chest, Jack O'Donoghue calf, Paddy Patterson calf, and Jack O'Sullivan tie, they've all returned to training. They're available for selection, will be determined later in the week. And Liam Coombs probably is the one, he'll begin rehabilitation on a thigh injury there, so he's definitely out. So yeah, I suppose from a Scarlets perspective, it's been a very up and down season, more down and up. But again, maybe kind of positive vibes in terms of the Challenge Cup. And they've continued that form. I suppose their last round performance against Edinburgh Rugby, it had flashes of Scarlets of old, really, being very clinical with ball in hand and really taking their opportunities when they arose. So, I mean, for Munster Rugby here, need to be just on their guard a little bit here in terms of Scarlets, and not to give any oxygen to the Scarlets of it.
Yeah, look, I mean that's the thing about it. You don't want to give them breaks there in the first half and to score a few tries and get a momentum. We have to kind of put this to bed early, you know, probably get 2 or 3 tries in the first half, and then or in the second half get the deciding one and just make it an easy game for the second half.
I think this will be, you know, an emotional backdrop given the news of Brian O'Brien's passing here, Liam. Great Munster Rugby stalwart, aged 83. Condolences to Brian O'Brien's family, many friends, and also the Munster Rugby organisation here. I suppose, Liam, thoughts on Brian O'Brien? What a magnificent servant from Munster Rugby, and also Shannon.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a legend who was involved in all facets of Munster Rugby and in terms of Munster senior rugby and the senior squad. Also, of course, great singer as well. Great singer. Will be well remembered by people in Shannon and Limerick in general.
Can't forget that he was the manager of the Ireland under-21 team. Again, manager of that Shannon team that won 4 in a row as well. Again, he became the team manager of Munster's men's team as well. Again, it's all coming back to that kind of start of the professional era here. And I mean, for a guy of that stature, really did set solid foundations for the team. And I mean, deepest condolences here for myself and Liam here on the podcast to Brian's family and many friends. And I suppose we'd be remiss to not say anything here. Tom Tierney's sudden passing as well last week here, Liam. An absolute shock to everyone in the rugby community.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I suppose similarities with Anthony Foley as well. You know, just incredibly sad. You know, such a young man involved with the Irish women's team, of course, along with Munster, Connacht Rugby, a massive mark made in life. Played for Ireland as well, and yeah, just again, we'll just give our condolences to his family on the sad passing.
Absolutely. No, completely concur there, Liam. I mean, magnificent player, I thought, from scrum half. So committed, but I would have probably known Tom Tierney from afar, particularly with, you know, local soccer and, you know, very avid sportsman, you know, a guy that just was quality sportsman in anything that he did. So I think from that perspective, a huge loss. I mean, he played with distinction here with Richmond, Gary Owen, Munster, Galwegians, Connacht, Leicester Tigers as well, where his passing was greeted with great shock. And also Ireland as well. You know, he debuted along with Brian O'Driscoll. So I think from that perspective, from 1999. So look, I think it's an enormous loss here. You mentioned in terms of his managerial roles, particularly with the women's rugby team as well. He was part of the IRFU here in terms of pathway development. He was being based in Limerick, so I think this is a terrible tragedy, to be fair. So look, deepest condolences to Tom Tierney's family, friends, Munster Rugby and IRFU as well. May you rest in peace. I suppose, Liam, we can focus back on the URC fixtures here. Glasgow Warriors, Zebri. I don't feel there's probably much hope here for Zebri in Scotland against a Glasgow Warriors team that'll be keen to bounce back after that loss in Johannesburg.
Yeah, the perfect fixture, really, isn't it? Like for anyone when Zebri's their next game, particularly at home. So yeah, look, I mean, a comfortable victory there, probably 25 to 30 points anyway. I could easily see that happening.
Absolutely, I think so too. The Munster Scarlets game, obviously you're tipping Munster Rugby here, Liam. Points for here.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to, as they go with the whole Ospreys thing. I'm definitely thinking it's going to be tighter. But still, I would say maybe 35-10 for Munster, so 25 points plus winning margin.
Exactly. Yeah, I think first quarter will set the tone here. I think Munster Rugby have an awful lot of motivation to get 5 points here. A bonus point in the bag. I think maybe a 10-15 point win. I think Scarlets will show good moments here. They are in a good run of form, but again, if Munster pack can really assert dominance, particularly in the maul, it could be, you know, a long afternoon and evening for the Scarlets. I suppose the two South African derbies here, Stormers, Sharks, Bulls, Lions. Are we looking at two home wins here, Liam?
Yeah, well, certainly the Stormers. I mean, Stormers are like Leinster, really. You can't hardly see them losing the entire season, you know. And yeah, the Stormers certainly, I think, could rack up a big score, particularly against the backup Sharks team. I think 30 point winning margin potentially could be against there. The other game certainly will be closer, the Bulls and the Lions. I would probably say the Bulls just about maybe 6-7 points, 3 tries each, not quite getting bonus points. So that's what I'd be thinking in that second game.
Yeah, no, I'd kind of go along with you there, Liam, particularly on the Sharks. I mean, their squad depth has been wholly exposed this year at various points when their frontliners haven't been there, and I think it's going to be more the same, particularly down in the Cape against the Stormers. So, yeah, I think that's a 20-point loss for the Sharks here if they're not too careful. And I think with the Bulls definitely need a win here, Liam. If they lose here, you just wonder about their playoff aspirations thereafter. You know, it is going to be a very interesting run in here. Particularly, they have to go to Ulster on the 25th. They also have Zebri, obviously, on round 17. And they would also have Leinster on round 18, maybe looking for a result. And we know with Leinster Rugby as well, you know, they might have a few fringe players, prospects in there. So I think from that perspective, Bulls, I think both teams might get a bonus point here. But I think the Bulls probably by 6 or 7, like you're saying. I suppose Edinburgh entertaining Leinster. I suppose from an Edinburgh rugby perspective, it is save our season time on URC. Their form has really dipped since Christmas against the Leinster squad here and rugby team here that could actually, I think, secure the top seed in the URC if they get a result here. I suppose, what's your verdict on this game?
Yeah, as you said, like for Leinster, with what 3 games to go to be guaranteed, is a massive motivation, and I think it'll be enough. And to be honest, again, until they meet someone like the Stormers, I can't see Leinster actually losing any game. So I'm tipping a bonus point victory for Leinster actually, away, even though it's away.
Yeah, because Edinburgh's home form has been pretty good, but I think there has been alarming signs, particularly in that Munster rugby performance in the URC. I think that's really kind of set the tone, particularly. And I don't think they've recovered really from the Glasgow Warriors results as well over the festive period, and it really has continued. I think Leinster Rugby coming to the Dam Stadium here, I think it could be, Leinster and Edinburgh. I think it'll be an open game, and that will suit Leinster right down to the ground. I think if you think of likes of Jimmy O'Brien, Jamie Osborne, I think there'll be a few of these looking to really impress here ahead of a test match in Murrayfield the previous week. So yeah, for me, Leinster Rugby are consolidating and stamping their top seed. I think it's a bonus point win. I think 10-point win. Ospreys play Benetton. Again, this is another intriguing game here, Liam. The Ospreys surely have a reaction after that 58-point drubbing, really, essentially, against Munster and Thomond Park, against a Benetton side without an awful lot of their frontline Italian internationals, but they certainly need a result after their previous round loss against Cardiff Rugby. Who do you fancy?
Yeah, it's an intriguing game, to be honest about it. I think the Ospreys potentially could, you might say it doesn't make sense, but I think the Ospreys have it in them, to put in a big performance. And I'm kind of tipping him just maybe again 5-6 point win to get over the line.
Yeah, like there is an awful lot of instability within the Welsh regions, given what's been happening in Welsh rugby in recent weeks and months. So maybe that Thomond Park fixture now, we can maybe read a bit into that in terms of the turmoil that have been going on behind the scenes. But I think for Toby Booth, particularly management and players, this is a time now to stand up and start building a form line heading into that Saracens game in the Champions Cup. And I think with Benetton will be looking for a result here. If they don't get a result here, then I think their playoff aspirations are pretty much dead in the water. So for me, I'm just going to slightly edge this to the Ospreys. I think it's just Ospreys are backs against the wall now. Again, that previous performance in Thomond Park was nowhere good enough. I expect a reaction here. I expect the marquee guys that are leading the side out, particularly in the international break, stepping up big. I think Ospreys here by 3 to 5 points here. I suppose Dragons, Connacht Rugby. Dragons did show some nice moments against Leinster in the previous round. Maybe scoreline didn't reflect that. Connacht Rugby coming in after a good win against Ebury. I know there was a little bit of a mini collapse in that third quarter. Who do you fancy here in Rodney Parade? I mean, it's a massive opportunity for Connacht Rugby to really consolidate their playoff spot.
I could actually see Connacht winning, but not getting too much more beyond that. So, not getting near the bonus point. Probably Connacht by 3 points, 4 points. Just a penalty in the last 10 minutes. I could actually see it happening. It's a tough place to go, actually, Rodney Parade, nowadays. I think that they're going to be hugely competitive again. They don't be as affected by international call-ups. They pretty much, Dyer was the only guy, and Dyer, I don't know if he's probably actually gone back now to the region. So yeah, I think it's going to be a cracking game, actually. One of the best of the weekend, actually.
Yeah, I think so too here, Dean, because that Dragon side will be probably as full strength as possible. Given, as you said, the Welsh international contingent really doesn't have too many from the Dragons. I'm thinking the likes of Tame Basham here should be really kind of putting his hand up for Welsh selection. A powerful performance here against Connacht gets him on the shop window. Ross Moriarty as well, I still think isn't finished in terms of international test rugby. I seriously don't. So I think from that perspective, I think Dragons are coming into this game with plenty to prove from a player perspective. I think Connacht Rugby here, they've showed an awful lot of good flowing rugby, but again, there is that question mark in terms of their defensive frailties when composure is lost. And I mean, I think Dragons might be the team to maybe kind of exploit that a little bit. Just given we've had the 3-week break again, I think from a Dragons perspective, they showed an awful lot of good signs against Leinster Rugby. And I think they will give Connacht a real fright here. Dragons start a season form. We go back to that Ulster Rugby home win in Rodney Parade for Dragons. If they have a similar performance here, I think Connacht might be in a spot of bother. But again, I'm just narrowly going to tip Connacht here by 3-5. I think there's going to be some inaccuracies here from Dragons, particularly at key moments, that give Connacht a lifeline, and maybe Jack Carty can provide a bit of solidity here when required in the final quarter to get that over the line. And I suppose finally here on Saturday, 7:35, Cardiff Rugby against Ulster. I think this is another good game on paper here, Liam. Di Young really frantically probably looking for good fit players to choose from. But if you can get a good complement of players to come out with selection, Ulster Rugby will have a tough game on their hands here in Cardiff.
Yeah, look, it is. I mean, the URCs, it's tremendous fixtures. It's showing up every week. Like I think Dragons Connacht's going to be a cracking game. This is going to be another cracking game, and all to play for, and hard to call because Ulster weren't predicted to do too much against the Sharks away. It's going to be another, I think, probably high scoring game actually. Two teams that are really going to just fling the ball around. But Scottstown, it's just one of those tough places to go. I suppose Cardiff still have an outside chance of all the teams in Wales in getting into the European Cup slots for next season in the URC. They have the motivation to, I suppose, at this stage, with 4 games to go, every Welsh player is playing for the contract, not necessarily with Wales or in Wales, probably more abroad. But if that isn't enough motivation, I don't know what is, So, yeah, it's intriguing. I would probably say Cardiff. I'll go with Cardiff just because needs must and they have to win. Plus 3 points, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to tip Ulster Rugby. I think this has to be a statement. Like I said here in terms of the Ospreys, I think Ulster Rugby now need to build a form line heading into that Leinster Rugby Heineken Champions Cup last 16. Has to happen here. They can't go to Durban 1 week and provide a good performance, get it 5 points to then come to Cardiff and not show up. I mean, the Scotstoun performance in the previous round before they went to South Africa was a little bit of worry. So I think this is a good test for Dan McFarlane management and squad here to really back up what they've done in South Africa. So I think given that, I think Cardiff still are struggling with 1 or 2 key injuries here. The fact that they will not probably have a few of their internationals available. I'm just going to give the slight nod here to Ulster. I don't think there's a bonus point in this, but I think it's probably a 3-5 point win for Ulster. And if they don't win this, I mean, it's going to be more question marks in terms of consistency from Dan McFarlane's charges. I suppose Liam will leave it there. It's been a lengthy one, but again, we've had an awful lot to review. Many thanks for your time tonight in terms of the Six Nations review of round 3, also looking at round 6 of the URC, and also looking at round 15 from the URC next weekend. I suppose next week we'll review the URC action here, particularly in the Irish provinces, and have a look ahead to some tantalisingly fascinating fixtures in the Guinness Six Nations round 4. Until then, Liam, have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Mark. Enjoy it all.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.